Hi, Maxine. Welcome to the video podcast of Product Manager Thought Collectives. By the way, I love your background. It's really amazing. Is this the art by yourself?
Yeah, it is. It's all of the art that I was previously hiding in a closet over the many years of my life. And I decided I'm just going to paste it all over a wall and make a wallpaper of my art. And this is
Yeah,
what the
yeah, I
outcome
love that. That's a truly creative wallpaper, and then I love how it really shows
is.
kind of the creativity, from your background.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks for joining this podcast. I'll start with my first question, which is also a signature question, is that how would you introduce yourself as if you were catching up with an old friend?
Yeah, it's a good one. I would say, well, as if I knew them. This is what, so if I knew them for years or if I just felt like a stranger and we knew each
I
other.
mean, maybe up to you. I mean,
Well,
I know
okay,
we met in
okay.
person in
Yeah,
December,
so high
but
level
let's say we've
overview.
been knowing each other for like 20 years. Said,
Yeah.
oh, no, we haven't talked for a while, but how would
Oh, okay,
you
okay.
give me
Yeah.
updates? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, as you know, I'm a born entrepreneur, and I am now the CEO of a startup called Pick My Brain. My mission is to facilitate 10 million conversations between the world's people every year. I value freedom, knowledge, and community. I live on Vancouver Island fractionally, but hop around the world. I believe that the knowledge economy is the next economy. I'm really excited to help people shift into that. And for fun, I play competitive beach volleyball, I mountain bike, I road bike, and go on hikes. I love immersing in nature. And majority of my time is spent deeply connecting with people from all around the world regularly and co-collaborating with them. So that's
Hmm.
like, yeah, general high level.
I love that because I think people don't usually talk about their fun time, right? I love that you play beach volleyball, and then you also do like hiking and biking. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I used to play taekwondo when I was growing up.
Hmm.
But now, watching my kid is a full-time sport.
That is a
But I should
full-time
work
sport.
out. I should get back to this workout routine. I do love hiking from time to time.
Yeah, it's nice to see what people like shared activities people do because I think every activity, taekwondo, beach volleyball, hiking, biking, they have their own subcultures. And so you
Hmm.
can get an idea of someone with what circles of physicality they also hang out in. So it's a good piece of knowledge to share for sure.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I can get back to like the skiing stuff.
Oh yeah.
One day, one day, one
One
day.
day. Yeah,
Yes,
you
yes,
raise your kids first or
yes,
in
yes.
tandem, yeah.
All right. The next question is, what is your origin story to starting your own company? Pick my brain.
Yeah, so it started like when I look back at it, it really started when I was young. I was kind of the kid that played every sport, could never land on one.
Oh,
I played
okay.
basketball, volleyball, golf, badminton, and just could never hyper focus. And I was also the kid that took math all the way, science all the way, art all the way. So it was like the athlete of the year, but also on the math wall
Yes.
and just really loved having being friends with every group and bringing the
Hmm.
groups together. So I was always the person that like brought the math kids together with the art kids or the athletic kids and would host these parties where everyone could kind of intermingle because I saw so much value always unlocked with like across um, groups that typically didn't talk. And that really fits in because Pick My Brain is this amalgamation of people from different industries, generations, and countries. And so I've had that in my since I was young. I was raised by a hairdresser. My mom's a hairdresser and a small business owner, which essentially means she's the town therapist and can have a
I was gonna
conversation.
say, I read a news somewhere that like
Yeah.
hairdressers are actually like the old time therapists, which is true. Yeah.
Which is true. She held so much. And because
Yeah.
like the salon was at the center of where I lived, everyone knew us.
Oh,
And so I could have a conversation with anyone, and so
I
could
love that.
she, which fits very well into Pick My Brain. And my dad was this futurist that lived like 10 years into the future. And so the pair of them, I felt like had something to do with the birth of Pick My Brain.
Hmm.
Um, And then, yeah, I studied finance when I first went to university because I love this idea of value exchange. I love the
Mhm.
idea that people that had money but no ideas and people that had ideas but no money could come and meet in the middle.
Mhm.
Went back and did economics, which taught me that you can adjust people's behavior through price, and really asked why do people do what they do. So economics is
Mm.
all about value-based economy, using price to influence behavior and understanding
Yes.
why. And yeah, in that journey, ended up pulling me into working for an environmental think tank. And while I loved that job and worked there for 6 years, I just saw a lot of, just like in the finance world, just a lot of friction that I didn't think needed to be there. In the finance world, they weren't asking questions about trading money that were in alignment with the environmental concerns. In the environmental world, they would do these policies and work years on them, and then a government would come in and change hands, and that
Mm.
policy would get demolished. And I was like, I don't want to put so much time and energy into a system that is fundamentally broken. And so right around that time, I was also like a massive couch surfer because I just like love meeting people. So I'd stay on a lot of couches, and my friends would never do it. They always thought like, Max, you're so crazy. Like, why would you stay on someone's couch for free? That's so weird. And I was like, okay, with my economist hat, I understand what you're feeling.
Yeah.
With my like ability to connect with people, you're missing out because you can really
Yeah. Yeah.
deeply understand a
That's
lot.
true. That's
And I was
true.
like, I wonder if someone came through and monetized this, if this would
Mm.
allow my friends to step in it because they would feel more comfortable if there was a value exchange happening.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
yeah. So, anyways, Airbnb came along and did that. And I
Mm.
was one of the first users of Airbnb back when it was first coming out. And I like when Brian Chesky was like onboarding people.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
And I was just like, holy, this company is going to change the world. And
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
thought it was the perfect model for my finance brain, my economist brain, connecting because it brought people into the home.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
was like, this is going to create so many entrepreneurs. This is probably going to be an environmental benefit and a social benefit. And it was more powerful. I was like, this company is going to do more benefit than anything I've seen in the finance world or my environmental economist world.
Mm.
And I remember being like, who else started this company? It was just three guys that were my age,
Yeah. Yeah.
Brian, Joe, and I always forget the
Nathan.
third one, Nathan.
Third
Thank you.
one's Nathan. Yep.
I always forget the third one.
I don't know why, but people always forget about Nathan. Yeah, that's true.
Always forgets he's not front facing.
Yeah, that's true.
And I was like, okay, I need to, within 2 weeks of discovering Pick My Brain, I actually ended up quitting my job as an environmental economist and being like, I would like to make the shift from economist to tech.
Mm.
And so I jumped and I gave myself 1 year on, I called it. I was like, well, I'd gone to university for 7 years. What if I just made up my own university
Mm.
and tried to make the transition and learn how to go more into this Airbnb direction, this like marketplace, this peer to peer marketplace, this tech world, and
Yeah.
stepped away from the environmental policy world. And
Okay.
so
Okay.
just made this year I basically made up my own university, and part of it, like, I did different things along that year. But long story short is, on that year, I came to start to ask myself, like, oh, I wonder if like I could do the same thing with Airbnb, but with people and knowledge. And I think
Mm.
that came to be because I was finding so much value in my year on in connecting with people. They would all, like, every deep conversation I had would adjust my path. But I also was struggling to meet people that were not in my world. I wanted to go meet other CEOs, and I would send them LinkedIn messages, but I didn't know if they were open. And I was like, listen, I'm willing to pay.
Mhm.
And then the third thing was that my mom was retiring at the time, and she was a successful entrepreneur and she wanted to share her knowledge, but she didn't know how.
Yeah. Right. 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 Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was like, okay. And all these things kind of colluded into my brain.
Mm.
And I was like, I wonder if I could pay someone to have a coffee and conversation, or if someone would pay me to have a coffee and conversation. I wonder what would that unlock if I could have a
Mhm.
conversation with anyone and they could have a conversation with me. So it just felt very like expansive. And as an environmentalist, I was like, this is like the knowledge economy. There's no supply chain, there's no degradation of the environment. And I started thinking, like, could knowledge commerce become the next e-commerce? And like,
Oh, I love that knowledge
yeah,
commerce. Okay,
knowledge
I love
commerce,
that
right?
knowledge. KC. All right.
Yeah. And I think we need, if we became, right, we are masters at packaging and pricing and selling products. We have not, which unlocked a $1 trillion e-commerce industry. but we haven't learned how to package and price knowledge yet. But if we did,
Mm-hmm.
I think we could have just as big of an economy if we learned
Mm-hmm.
how to buy and sell time, knowledge, experience, and wisdom as good as they
Yeah.
are products. It's harder, but I think we're shifting. So anyways, all these thoughts were just like, I was like, this feels so good and so expansive. And so then I needed to test it. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, are people willing to pay for knowledge? Like, we're really good at buying stuff. But do we feel comfortable buying knowledge from people? So I full circle went back to Airbnb. They had just launched experiences, which is like
Mm-hmm.
tourism, but I
Right,
just
right,
used
yeah.
their platform and I packaged an offer that was called Coffee and Conversation with a Vancouver startup founder. And I charged $50. And I was like, oh, I wonder if anyone will pay for this to test this hypothesis, whether knowledge commerce could be the next e-commerce.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, 60 people from around the world booked and paid me for this coffee and conversation within
I
like
love that. That's like the product
three
market
months.
fit right there.
I was like, oh, product market fit. I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. Okay, okay.
it wasn't the $3,000 that I made from going for coffee and conversation that even shifted me. It was what happened, who came into my portal. It was a
Mm-hmm.
magnetized offer that attracted so much abundance into my life, people coming to me, showing up on time, paying me for my knowledge, wanting to dive in, and that relationship opening up a door of opportunities. Every single one of
Yeah,
those
yeah.
experiences, 10 out of 10, because
Mm-hmm.
the programming was set that they wanted to come meet a Vancouver startup founder. I had said in my description, we're just going to go for coffee. We're going to talk about the future of work. We're going to talk about the future of education, my favorite two
Yeah,
topics. So that's
yeah.
only going to attract a certain number of people. You know, not
The
everyone wants
expectations is set, right? Yeah, yeah,
expectations were set. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, on the supply side, it was just, I would have paid to be at each of those conversations as well, because the people that were attracted to it were
Mm-hmm.
I learned so much and they got to learn so much. And then again, there was this portal open that we could do collaborations for in
Yeah.
perpetuity. And so my economist brain was like, my gosh, this is so value. There's just so much impact and scalability here and value transfer happening. And it's very expansive. So my first vision was like, can we just build a giant global coffee and conversation marketplace that no matter
Platform,
where I
yeah,
go in the world,
yeah, yeah.
I can go for a coffee. But yeah, COVID hit and we shifted to online, which was a benefit. And now,
Mm-hmm.
fast forward 5 years later, you know, we have Pick My Brains Marketplace where people are packaging and pricing and selling their knowledge in a wide variety of ways,
Mm-hmm.
and playing with this new economy. And so that was
Yeah,
kind of like the trajectory.
yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me of another company called Intro. Is
Yeah.
where you could have access to, let's
Yeah.
say, celebrity founders.
Yes.
I like your business model even more because, yeah, sure, you can learn from billionaires, but they're
Yeah.
also mom and pop business owners. They have survived ups and downs in
Yeah.
different, industries. They can just give as much as knowledge,
They
maybe
can.
even more compared to the billionaires who might have more resources.
I couldn't agree more. And it's because, first of all, I find I don't even want to learn from like celebrities anymore because I'm not related. I can't
Yes,
relate.
no, they're not relatable.
There's
Right,
no
yeah.
relatability. And if
Yeah.
I was thinking about it from an impact perspective,
Hmm.
how much impact is transferring when a billionaire helps? How much time does a very wealthy person have? Limited.
Hmm.
And are they gaining a bunch of value by selling their time? Not really, because they're good.
Right, right, yeah, yeah.
Whereas if you're transferring that money to someone that's, it's there, the value equation, if you open up the diversity of not just famous people, like on Pick My Brain, I can have a conversation with a Holocaust survivor. I can have a conversation with someone from
Hmm.
Egypt that lived through the revolution and talk about it. I can have a conversation with a scientist.
Yeah, I love
So
that.
the diversity is there. But yeah, very similar. Intro is doing great and they're going to succeed in that department, kind of just like, what's that Cameo did?
Cameo,
Famous
yeah, yeah, yeah,
people.
yeah.
But I'm like, no, I want to meet the world's people now.
Right,
I
right,
don't
right, yeah,
want to
yeah.
just meet the famous people. I really want to meet right when we met, that was
Yeah,
a
exactly.
conversation. It was just like beautiful.
Yes.
This girl's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you too. You're also cool. Yes.
They're just cool people meeting cool people. And what happens
Yeah.
when cool people meet? We're now doing a podcast, you and I. We've now
Hmm.
we share each other's content because we had
Yeah.
a moment of connection. I'm not going to do that if I book someone on Intro, I'm not assuming that we're going to talk after. It's a
Right, right,
transaction.
right. It's like
Yeah.
$1,000 for that 1 hour. I don't
Yeah.
know you cannot continuously to pay that. It's like
Yeah.
it's like a treat kind of thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's
Yeah.
a good point. So
Yeah.
you have a very interesting like career pivot because you
Yeah.
used to be an economist. Now you're an entrepreneur. So
Yeah.
what are some kind of key learnings or unlearnings, as I call it, that you have to unlearn, roll back to your previous
Yeah.
mindset, or you have to like really grow into a certain mindset from an economist to entrepreneur?
Yeah, I love that question too. I'm lucky in that both my parents are entrepreneurs, like really
Mm-hmm.
have entrepreneur in the blood. And I
Mm-mm.
think you either are an entrepreneur or you're like not an entrepreneur. You can become more entrepreneurial, but there's some people
Okay,
that
you
just
can.
went,
There's like a transition. Okay,
yeah,
that's possible. That's good to
yeah,
hear. Okay.
but I would say, so as an economist, you are taught about the laws of scarcity. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yep,
there are
that's true.
scarce amount of resources and how do you distribute and disseminate them equitably? That's like economists. But I feel like in entrepreneurial world, you really need to have an abundant mindset because you're creating additionality. You're trying to go somewhere and
Mm.
create rather
Right,
than look
right.
at what you have and distribute. So
Okay, okay, that's
that's
true.
been a
That's true.
shift. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a shift. Okay.
Um, I feel like very complementary in economics. You do these like multivariate variable models you're trying to model the economy, and there's so many variables that can change an economy, which I've actually taken over to the environment, entrepreneurial world. There's just
Mm.
so many variables when you start a company, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And you are creating an economy when you do a company, which I studied a lot in economics too, like, but I was looking at the current economy, but as an entrepreneur you're creating a new economy.
Creating a new economy. Wow, that's
Yeah,
true. Yeah.
so that
Okay. I
that
like
was
that.
really
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah.
Risk reward, and intuition. So I feel like as an entrepreneur you need to get in line. They call it in economics animal spirits. And it's when
Mm.
leaders of a company have animal spirits where they just need to follow what is in their heart, what they're drawn towards, what their visions are. To a certain extent, they need to like let go of logic because they're trying to bend the universe to their will. Entrepreneurship is like,
Mm.
I'm creating something new and I need to bend people to this new way of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to do that, I think you have to be, yeah, in touch with your animal spirits, your intuition, however you want to call it. But in economics, as an economist, I didn't. I just got to
Okay.
like follow,
The
right? I wasn't
rules were like
creating.
formula.
Yes, that
Oh,
was a
okay.
shift.
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably it. And then I learned a lot, like in economics as an economist, I learned how to value base equations, like how to monetize anything and how to understand what the value of something brings. And in entrepreneurship, I really think that's important too. It's not just the price. It's like what impact, what value, what economic, what social, what human capital are you unlocking with your idea?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just about like they're very complementary, but I think
Mm-hmm.
just the shift is just going from observing to creating.
I love that. Okay. Yeah. So I think that's why the world needs entrepreneurs, especially when there's an economic downturn, right? Like there are only so many
True.
things you
Yeah,
could grab the resources from. But if you're an entrepreneur, you're creating new things, new worlds, new horizons, right? Yeah.
that's a good point. And it's really hard to be an entrepreneur in a downturn sometimes.
Right,
But
right.
sometimes
That's
it
true.
creates, it's like this catch 22, which yeah, the government, if they really understood the value of what entrepreneurs can unlock if given the resources,
Mm-hmm.
they would probably fund, like I wish there was, how there's unemployment insurance for people that lose their job. I
Right,
think there should be
right.
like entrepreneurial insurance.
Hey, that's a new
Drag it a
startup
little
idea. I
further,
love that. I love
right? To
that.
go
Yeah.
create. Like I need some backing a little bit
Right, 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 right.
to quit
Yeah.
my job and take the plunge to create value for many.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's a great startup idea.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I would imagine the past few years, you
Yeah.
being an entrepreneur is not all roses and
Yeah.
flowers, right? There are
Yeah.
definitely ups and downs. So, how do you navigate these challenging situations, especially when you said COVID hit, right? You had to
Yeah.
transition, pick my brain from a coffee conversation to like a virtual coffee conversation, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the entrepreneurship highs and lows are very real.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think 80% of entrepreneurs like struggle with mental health more than any other industry because you're in creation, you're creating new systems, you're trying to hold a new vision in an economy that like is very structured. But that's like it's the blessing and the curse because you can reach the highest highs as an entrepreneur, but you can
Mm-hmm.
also reach the lowest lows.
Yeah.
But to deal with that, I think is just like you got to ride the roller coaster. You have to like
Okay.
ride it and be like, what am I discovering? Don't resist the pain or the low points, and just know what your range is, and that it's very normal in a day to go from the highest high moment to the lowest low, sometimes
Mm.
multiple times a day,
Right,
which is
right, yeah.
very energy intensive.
Mm.
But just like similar things, have a strong support network that you can like go tell your truth to, and like unlock on, and like just like release some of the fear that you are going to have because you're stepping into the unknown. I find so much support in reading. I've read like almost every entrepreneurial book, like Steve Jobs' autobiography to Startup Land to Zendesk to like
Mm-hmm.
understanding the journey, listening to how I built this, to know what you're going through is normal, right?
Yeah,
And to know
yeah, yeah.
how long you have to live without revenue, that is typical. So you're not doubting yourself, because it takes a ton of time and energy to create something new. So
Yeah,
just
yeah.
hearing the stories of others can kind of validate where I'm at, and that it's not just to me, because it's a very lonely journey. But if you understand others, then you can kind of see the path a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have your cheerleaders. Know who your cheerleaders are, the ones that cheer you on all the time, and go and drop into them and have them cheer you on, because just like running a marathon or an Ironman, you need some of that
Right,
energy,
right.
such
Yeah,
a
yeah.
push. And then honestly, nature. It's why I live on Vancouver Island. I need to
Oh,
immerse in nature sometimes and just like
I love
live
that. I love
in the
that.
trees.
Yeah, I think actually, yeah, nature does have the best inspiration.
Yes.
I remember last year when I got laid off from my job, and then I dropped my son to daycare. But every
Yeah.
morning, I took a long walk, just like listen to music around the neighborhood. It's like an hour
Yeah.
plus, sometimes 2 hours. But it feels so
Amazing.
good. I don't
Yeah.
feel like, oh, the future is uncertain. I actually feel like, oh, there are so many things I could do. Like here are a different
Yeah.
version, the newsletter of people I could talk to. So I think, yeah, nature does give like the best,
Yeah.
probably
I love
the
that.
the best inspiration, just like the best medicine for you for mental health. Yeah.
So good. And I hope people realize that more, as a former environmental economist, the more relationship, the more we realize that walking in a forest can alchemize our nervous system and like provide so much,
Hmm.
we will protect it more. But we
Yeah.
really have to make that connection and understand how giving it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're
Yeah.
spending more time in it. But yes, that's,
Definitely.
yeah,
Definitely.
so helpful.
Let's switch the gear a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, like the top trending word is probably AI. I've seen a meme saying like the CEO of all the top companies, if they
Yeah.
give a keynote, like how many times they say the word AI, in like
Yeah.
certain
Yeah.
minutes. So as an entrepreneur yourself, how do you
Yeah.
keep yourself up to date? Because I feel like every day is changing, right? Like one
It
day
is.
you say, oh, this is a great new startup. The
Yeah.
next day, OpenAI did something that totally disrupt whatever
Yeah.
previous companies were doing. So, I mean, sometimes I feel overwhelmed, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
how do you keep yourself up with the AI things?
Yeah, it is super tricky, because even as someone who's fundraising, right, you have to have your AI playbook
Right,
well
right, right.
thought
Yeah.
out, as well how you're going to integrate this new technology into your vision. So both like understanding how AI can support and complement Pick My Brain's vision to provide and facilitate 10 million conversations between the world's people, and
Hmm.
be aware of the comments of like, well, can't do we have to talk to people? Can't we just talk to AI?
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Right. Right.
so like, yeah,
Okay.
knowing it as your own company strategy and your relationship with it. But I mean, through conversations, I get all of my knowledge through conversations because I think it's the fastest. And so
Mm-mm.
having active conversations with my other entrepreneurial friends about what they think about it, how they're using it,
Mm,
going
okay.
to thought leadership talks and seeing the application in the art world, in the finance world, in the climate world, and painting a picture of what's possible. Of course, playing with it, right? Jumping in
Yeah.
and doing,
Yeah.
watching the YouTube, be like, okay, I'll go try that just to see the power myself.
Yeah.
Is primarily how I get that knowledge, and very similar to others. But I think, yeah, there's just a matter of it's moving. I think I read a quote like, for the first time in human history, our tech is moving faster than our ability to keep up with it. And
Definitely feels like that for sure. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
relying on each other to support that transition, right? Just checking in with other people. But yeah, I mean, it's evolving. I hope. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that how you say you also get knowledge from people right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, like there are different ways to consume knowledge, right? Like I could read a
Yes.
book, which I'm reading.
Yeah.
One of my friends wrote a book about Gen AI product management. I
Nice.
could also read newsletters, but there are so
Yeah,
many newsletters out there. I don't have that much
it
time,
is.
right?
Yeah,
But when you
yeah,
talk to people, the person you're talking to already filtered the
yes,
noises versus
yeah,
the essence. So you're getting the essence directly from that person. Maybe there are some bias, but
yeah.
still, like I think that's probably one of the best and more efficient way to learn. Yeah, that's true.
You nailed it when you said essence, because that's, yeah, I keep gravitating towards like, wow, I get why in a 30-minute conversation do I feel like I can download
Mm-hmm.
so much rather than reading a book or trying to find the book to read. And
Yeah,
like you said, they've downloaded it, they've processed it, they've
they
synthesized
processed already
it.
in their brain,
Yeah, and
right?
they're passing it to you in the condensed version, and you're like,
Yes.
"Thank you." And then you can go read deeper. Then you can
Yeah.
go find a newsletter that they've recommended,
Hmm.
and filter yeah, sift through the garbage that is the internet sea of, what's good,
Yeah.
what's not. Yeah. Yeah, like if anyone, I would say go ask 10 people what this exact question that you just asked me. How do you stay up to date
Yeah.
on tech? And you will learn.
Right. 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 Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
very
true. That's
quickly.
true. So I don't know what's the series you guys are. Are you fundraising for seed or Series A? I don't know the differences to be honest, but I do wonder like which stage is Pin My
Yeah.
Brain at, and then how
Yeah.
do you get better in fundraising? I assume this is not a natural born ability. You have to just get
Learn.
used to constantly like pitch your ideas to everybody, right?
Totally. Yeah. So a bit of context. We've raised just under $1 million over the last 2.5 years from
Mm,
friends, family, and angels.
mm-hmm,
Largest check 150K, smallest check 20K.
mm-hmm,
And so we've just iteratively kind of raised as we've bootstrapped our platform. And right now we're looking to raise $2 million, one from an institution, and we might do a community round as well. So that's kind of
okay,
where I'm at.
okay.
And have probably 15 people on my cap table. So I've pitched and got 15 people to write a check between 20 and 150.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, yeah, it's not a natural thing to raise money. It was such a journey to be able to ask and learn about how cap tables and startups work and how safes work, and how to bring someone into the opportunity that they're coming in to invest, like really show them the upside potential. The
Mm-hmm.
difference between having a strategic investor and just someone who believes in you is very interesting to find out, like to be able to
Okay.
offer investors that if they introduce you to someone, this is what's going to happen to their investment. So it makes sense to invest first and introduce second sometimes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
finding the play, it's like a sport. It's a full contact sport, and you're learning how to, yeah, show off your value proposition and communicate with someone very effectively the opportunity at hand and the risk. So how did repetition, obviously, like you just have, as a founder, you have to
Keep
just pitch
going. Yeah.
and pitch. And
Yeah.
one of my coaches or one of my advisors was like, Max, I want you to go get your first 10 no's. That's your first assignment. I want you to get super comfortable with the no, because there's going to be a ton of no's. And you'll see that when people say no, it doesn't mean no forever. They'll come back once you've reached certain milestones. So get comfortable going to get your no's. So that was really helpful. And then the other thing, like as a woman who raises, and I feel like, I don't know if I'm pre-programmed, but I feel like I have an aversion to asking for help and support and money. It's like a very uncomfortable thing to be like, at first, like, hey, will you invest a bunch of your money into my idea? That's a hard thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I wasn't asking. And my friends then started to, the first like 400,000 I raised was people asking me if they could invest. And I was like,
Ah,
oh,
okay. I love that.
okay.
But
Yeah.
if you asked earlier, like that, maybe the door opened earlier. Yeah, that's true.
And so now I'm like, okay, anyone that believes in the future of connection and community and knowledge commerce, I will ask, because I feel like I can offer them a massive opportunity to be part of something that could be really great. So
Mm-mm-mm.
that
I love
shift in
that.
asking took a few, like a year to get comfortable doing it. But now that I have, like you said, it's just the same thing. It's like going out in the economy, be like, what services do you have?
It's an exchange. It's a value
It's an
exchange.
exchange.
They
It's
value your
an
company, your
exchange.
future, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then getting comfortable with like, oh, $2 million is actually not a lot of money. At first I thought that was so much. It's really not. When you have a company that's trying to create $100 million of value, Two, to jumpstart that is a very good investment. It really depends on scale. So I started doing calculations, like my friend that started a restaurant needed $2 million to start his restaurant. And I was like, wow, okay, so if people, and he raised it. And I had to set this for myself because I was like, wow, your revenue potential is totally capped. Your margins are super small.
To the
Your
restaurant,
ability
right.
to scale is right. There's risk there, but if someone gave me 2 million, I have unlimited ability to scale because of SaaS. So then I just started trying to find relations of being like, oh, of course you need capital to start a restaurant. Same with the SaaS, and I think this is a better investment. So then I could start to see and bring people over to be like, this is a great investment because. So yeah, it's just a practice, reps.
To practice, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are any super successful or super unsuccessful fundraising things you could share. That you feel like, oh, that's so memorable. It's like I can never forget. Like that made me realize, oh, I really need to get better in certain areas.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say like right now, the fundraising scene is changing all the time, right? Based on the economy, and like the valuations are changing in companies based on which companies shut down. Like it's very an interesting scene out there.
True.
There's also so much more capital to draw on than just traditional VC. There's private equity, there's community rounds, there's angels, there's funds like, what are they called? Syndicates that you can raise from. Getting like a lay of the land, like that was really hard, but like unsuccessful stories, I've been really lucky because again, a lot of the people have asked me to invest in the company up until this point, and I am mostly a bootstrapper, right? Under $1 million is not that much, but going forward, what I don't like is how much the game is. I don't like how the game is structured in terms of raising an institutional round. They advise startups to go and like send your information like 200 plus people, and it's a numbers game and you'll close, and that just like feels fundamentally wrong with me. So I like resist.
There's no connection.
No connection. And like my platform's all about connection. Like I can't do it that way. It's out of alignment with what I believe. So I'm unwilling to play that game. And then also, I'm also very peculiar about the people that are coming in, what terms the relationship comes with, right? If they're going to write a $1 million check, but they're going to control certain things, I just wish that conversation would be really, really clear. Like the terms were a little bit clearer to make those investments more like quickly, and make sure that both parties come to the party like together. But I haven't had any like unsuccessful stories other than just like going out and trying to do it. So I'll know this round. Like I said, I'm raising 2 million. It's the most I've raised. I haven't gone institutional yet. I have my 3 dream people. I've like had enough conversations, and now I'm going to go back to the 3 that really resonated. Just pitch them until they invest. I think that's my strategy. Like, what do I have to constantly hit? I'll constantly hit it and come back.
The goals. Right. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And so you were born and raised in Canada.
I was, yeah.
And then you live in the Vancouver Island. So how is the tech scene overall? Because like when we first met, you were visiting San Francisco, which is great. But majority of time you spend is actually in Canada, right?
It's true. Yeah. Yeah, I do. Yeah. Vancouver's tech scene is actually really incredible. And because it's such a desirable place to live, so it attracts a lot of top talent. And there's been some very successful unicorns that have been built and scaled in Vancouver. And actually the province has taken an understanding to that. And so there's actually this incredible program in BC. And if you qualify as what they call an eligible business corporation, investors can invest in your company and the government will write them a check of 30% back in year 1 in tax credits to reduce the risk of investing. So they've seen that these startups create so many jobs and a lot of value for their community. So they're trying to de-risk and allow people with money in Vancouver, which typically invest in real estate because Vancouver is like such a real estate boom. They're trying to get some of that capital into more startup people's hands. And they're doing that by de-risking and being like, listen, like, for example, if someone invested $100K in Pick My Brain and they're from BC, I can get them $33,000 in tax credits in year 1 back immediately and up to 74% if they invest through their RRSPs or TFSAs. So the province is supporting the capital
That's
flow.
amazing.
It's
Wow.
amazing.
Okay, I
Yeah.
did not know that. So
Yeah.
that sounds very attractive.
It
Okay,
is
for
attractive.
investors in that area.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's starting to flow. And while Vancouver, like, I mean, I came to San Francisco because I feel like San Francisco is like the furthest future in terms of like where we're going in tech, and has the most amount of people working at the big companies that are in the middle of it, right? It's like I met you, right? You worked at Pinterest, you worked at TikTok, and I was like, okay, I don't have friends in Vancouver that have worked at the FANG companies or these
Right,
large
right. That's
companies.
true.
I
That's true.
really want to see and feel that. So Vancouver doesn't have that, but we still have an emergence of top talent, capital, beautiful place to live. Canada's awesome.
Yes, Canada's awesome.
Yes.
I agree. I agree. I mean, I only went to Toronto, but I went there so many times. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it works.
Yeah, that I think that's a smart thing government should do. I
Me
have heard
too.
stories about like all the money, from different places pouring into real estate. So like I'm
Yeah.
glad they're doing it for entrepreneurial things finally. Okay.
Me too, because again, real estate is safe and I get it. But tech is like ever expanding potential,
Yeah.
right? So, but
Yeah,
I
right,
think
right.
it's just an awareness of, right, we can diversify our investments into the stock market, mutual funds, real estate, bonds. But there's this other scene. Like you can also put 10% of your portfolio into like a high mission driven portfolio. But I just think we're starting to get comfortable with that.
Mm, mm.
And when that opens up, there's going to be even more creation, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
so actually, I mean that made Canada very attractive for entrepreneurs. So that sense, I think
Yeah.
that's like a good policy. Yeah. I
It
did
is
not
a
know
good,
that, but that makes
yeah.
sense.
I think it's just
Mhm.
British Columbia right now, the province. Some other
Okay.
provinces have it. But yeah, it is
Okay.
it has been so helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right. One last question is,
Yeah.
do you have some advice for people who want to become an entrepreneur? So you mentioned an interesting thing earlier. I might slightly disagree, right? So you said you were born entrepreneur. I believe
Yeah.
in that. But I wonder, like, am I born entrepreneur? I don't know.
Mm.
Like,
Mm.
is this nurture versus nature, right? So that's a question I don't know the answer, right?
Yeah.
But like, if I want to raise my kids to be entrepreneur, what if
Yeah.
they were not born entrepreneur?
Yeah.
So how do you become more entrepreneurial? So that's something I want to discuss with you.
I love it. Yeah, I think you can just like sports, like there's going to be some natural athletic kids that just exceed in some sports, but you can learn the fundamentals of a sport and take yourself quite far.
That's
But
true.
like the
That's true.
superstores, like the Kobe's, they have an innate gift that they will just become. So I think it's similar to entrepreneurship. I think it can be applied in so many ways. I think everyone can be an entrepreneur. I think everyone can find something to create that's unique to them. How to become more entrepreneurial? I'd say talk to more people.
Mm,
Honestly,
okay.
entrepreneurship is the business of understanding people and how to win them over and how to create value for them and how to get them to direct in a way that you'd like them to, whether it's buying your product, whether it's buying your service, whether it's investing in your company. You have to have the ability to converse with a wide variety of people. And you have
Mm-mm.
to kind of understand how people think so that you know how to create value. So I'd be like, and you need a network to drop into when you're an entrepreneur, right? I even say right now we're going through a transition that if you have a community prior to launching, you're de-risking yourself.
Okay.
um,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
right, because if you have a trusted group that really knows, loves, and trusts you and you offer a product or service, the engagement and the conversion is going to be much higher than if you're
Mm,
dropping into like people that don't know, love, and trust you,
yeah.
and trying to create that love and trust as fast as you can. So I'd say that. I'd say, like, again, kids, like, just thinking about how to create money for yourself. Like, don't teach a person how to don't give a person a fish, teach them how to fish.
Fish. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Learn how to go make money in the world by yourself. What can you do on the interweb? Because
Mm,
to figure out how to get $1 from someone in the world into you, because you're going to have to learn how to do that as an entrepreneur. And we can all learn that. Can you sell something on Pinterest? Uh,
mm.
can you create a course on Kajabi?
Right.
Can
Right. Right. Yeah.
you create a workshop? Like, learning how to do that and get people to come buy into something, super essential skill to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yeah.
Risk and reward, right? Getting comfortable with taking risks and leaps. I was super lucky in that I felt like I had saved enough to take a year on and discover
Yeah.
whether I could lean into creating and designing my life. And that gave me the freedom to find that opportunity. So, like, do you have enough space, and have you
Hmm.
created space in your life to play with being an entrepreneur? You got to go try. You got to go play the sport.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I like
so
that. Is it a muscle? You start like
it's a muscle.
exercising and then you realize, oh, that the muscle is getting stronger. So, oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And then I think just mindset. I think there are people who are mindset can see opportunity in everything that they come across. They see
Mm-mm.
the gaps very quickly. So if you can train your mind to see the world an opportunity and or problem solution, you
Mm-mm.
are more likely to come up with more ideas that can plug or solve that. So can you see the world in that way? Can you teach yourself to see the world in that way? Um,
I love that. Just be a problem solver, right? There
yeah, learn how to
always
solve
will be
problems.
problems, but there should
Yes.
always be more solutions. My mom
Yeah.
always said there will always be more solutions than problems.
Yes.
So yeah, so definitely like my takeaway is definitely first of all be observant, right? Train yourself to be a problem solver to see, oh, I see a
Yeah.
gap in this, right? It could
Yeah.
be anywhere. It could be in your city, in your neighborhood,
Yeah.
in the company, in a certain vertical, and then also talk to people
Yes.
who would sympathize with like what you are going through, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it will be a lonely journey because in my video podcast with Ryan, he is the founder. He mentioned that sometimes it takes like 3 years to find product market fit. So you have to have that patience, right? You have to talk to people who will
Yeah.
support you, cheer you on along the way. Yeah.
So long, and it was so nice. An entrepreneur that I that supported me along my journey. The one of the most useful things he did for me is he opened up his QuickBooks account and he showed me it
Mhm.
took him 6 years to make $1. And then his
Wow.
company scaled to 600K ARR, and I was like, no way. And that was
Wow.
so useful. And
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
made me contextualize it. I was like, well, how long does it take to do a PhD?
Right. Right.
Like
Right. Right. Yeah.
4 to 7 years, because you have
Yeah.
to understand the market.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have to understand enough to notice the gaps, and then you have to understand
Hmm.
enough to propose a solution. And then you
Yeah.
have to get people on it. That just takes time. That is
Yeah.
complete time and energy. And you can't, right? Everything is energy. If you want to create a million or a 10 million or $1 billion company, that energy has to come from pouring in somewhere too, and long enough for it to get there. So you can't just do
Right.
that
Right.
right away,
Yeah.
otherwise it'll crumble.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. That's true. Thank you so much, Maxine.